Hey, welcome everybody. Good to see you guys. It's I'm excited how we're getting some consistent faces. So it's good to see a lot of you again this month. Um, yeah, I'm excited for tonight. We got Gabe Valenzuela with us, and yeah, we were just chatting beforehand about COVID craziness and all that fun stuff, and how Reading seems to be reopening. And depending where you are in the country, probably not yet in Canada, but hopefully we'll be there soon. But yeah, I'm excited for what Gabe has to share with us. How many of you have done second year, just by show of hands? Yeah, okay. And how many have not, I guess? A few. Okay. So you didn't get to experience Gabe firsthand. So Gabe, if you didn't know, he's Bill's son-in-law. He's Bill's only son-in-law, right? And yeah, he's got just incredible wisdom, but an amazing sense of humor. And yeah, so I'm excited for what he has to share tonight. So Gabe, I'll turn it over to you. I muted you when everyone else came in too, so you have to unmute yourself there.
There we go. How's that? Perfect. Well, it's nice to see everybody. So I recognize some faces. So nice to see people I haven't seen in such a long time. If you didn't come to second year, well, I'm so sorry. You disobeyed the Lord and stayed in Canada or whatever you're doing. So it is nice to see everybody. Any chance we get to just connect and talk to our former students, it's great. We're kind of in the middle of planning for next year. So it's a unique time for us in that, we said goodbye to all the current students and we're trying to work it out and fall in love with the new ones that are coming, and lots of planning, lots of stuff. So I don't know what the weather's like in Canada. I'm sure Canada's a big country. So wherever you're at, I'm sure it's really nice. Reading's nice today. We just got done with 108. So you're not missing a ton. 108 is painful. 108 is right like at going to hell status, is tough. But it's nice today and we're doing good. So we're going to chat for a little bit. Gosh, maybe about 15, 20 minutes here, and then we'll kind of take some questions if you have any, and we'll just kind of see how we go. So talking to Chris a little bit, he asked me to share just a couple things, as knowing you're all alumni. Now, let me just get it from me. Maybe you could just wave hands. How many of you have been out of school for like 2 years or less? Out of school 2 years or less? A few of you. How about like 2 to 5 years? Few. Who's over 5 years out of school? Oh, well, there you go. Congratulations. So you guys are still Christians. So that's awesome. Is that Jocelyn down there that I see a little bit? Oh, so there you go. Well, it's challenging, right? So how many of you thought like you got out of school? If you were like me, I got out of second year and I thought Billy Graham was going to call me and I was going to take over like superhuman ministry and it was all going to be amazing and God was going to wear me like a glove and I was just going to do all the stuff, all the things. I thought that. And then I had a dose of reality, and it was challenging. How many of you feel like you either are going through that or have went through that? Anybody? Good. I like the interaction. Good. Well, I think this is the challenge of school, right? So this is, I love school. I love first year and second year. I'm partial a little bit, obviously, for what I do. School is a unique, wonderful, amazing place, and there's no other place like it on the planet. Let's just be clear about that. This is a greenhouse that like is the best greenhouse ever. You know what I mean? You don't even have to try hard. So here's the challenge that we face in school often is that we have all of this presence driven life stuff, and it's presence all the time, every day, whether you want it or not, tired or not. You come to school. If you happen to show up in the room accidentally, you're going to feel the presence of the Lord because the presence is tangible and you feel him when he's around. And in the middle of your class, no matter what, even if you're not feeling it that day, someone is feeling it. If you're having the worst day ever, there will be some of the most annoying students ever that just are so in love with Jesus that, they can't help bring the presence of the Lord. And so it's almost like every day I'm around the presence, which is a beautiful aspect of our school. I think it's wonderful. The challenging aspect of that is you can go to 1, even 2, sometimes 3 years of school of ministry, and feel the Lord consistently and realize, oh no, I don't actually know how to keep this feeling. I don't know how to sustain this feeling. I don't know how to carry this feeling for my own. You know, for me in first year, I went through all the first year, and it was good. It was all right. And then summer hit, and I got a little panicked when I realized, oh, I don't know how to kind of do this by myself. Even my prayer moments with the Lord, and I would actually take time to pray. Like I was dedicated, probably like many of you, I would take time to pray. But you ever have those moments in prayer where you're like, you know, you're 30 minutes in and you just run out of stuff. There's just nothing to pray anymore. Jesus left the building, the Holy Spirit's not in it. You might as well watch TV because you're going to get more out of it than just pray. I don't know if any of you feel that way. There's probably some really spiritual people here, but I felt that way in school. And so one of the challenges I had was, how do I sustain everything I got? And how do you actually you know, keep the fire, so to speak, burning? And so that was a really tough deal for me, you know. And so we found there's a couple things really practically that we found really work. And we found this over the context of school too, as I became a leader in the environment, and now we're trying to grow and develop students. We've actually kind of worked this out as a, you know, in a bit of a scientific way, as we talk to students and find out what is the real important thing. And for years, we would tell people, for years, we would say, just get around community. Community is the thing that's going to keep you. And that's what we would say. And at some level, it was kind of true. Community is actually really, really valuable. It's awesome. But as we actually did our work, our study, and looked around, we actually found that it's not the most important thing. It's not the most valuable thing, oddly enough. And we really found that you could be an alumni in a house with, you know, 5 other students, and have a less significant kind of moments with the Lord, moments of presence, moments of impact, than if you were a individual in the middle of nowhere, right? Stuck all by yourself if you did this one thing. And that one thing is kind of crazy. And I say this knowing that I don't know what Canada looks like right now, to be honest. So I don't know if you guys are locked down still or all of that stuff, but what we found most valuable, and it's valuable whether it's on Zoom or in person, is that you would actually go to church. Like you would find a group of believers to fellowship with consistently and be a part of. We found that was the defining factor in the success of our students in keeping the fire burning. Here's what is unique about that. You didn't even have to find a quote unquote like spirit-filled Bethel type church. That didn't even matter. What mattered is that you were consistently attending a place of worship, is that you got out of your home to actually attend somewhere and to serve somewhere and to grow somewhere. And we thought that was pretty incredible for us, because I would suspect that just being around a group of people actually did the thing. And it didn't do it the way we thought it was. It was being a part of a local body of believers was the actual thing that was sustainable. Now, in that local body, it's really important. Yes, community is valuable. Time with the Lord's valuable. Actually spending time practicing his presence is actually valuable. But for whatever reason, you know, when the Bible talks about like actually being together in community with believers at a local church, that was a sustaining factor for a ton of our students in did they feel successful outside of school. So you know, that would be the one factor. Yes, community is actually important. The other factor that was a big deal, that we found, is how much do you actually continue to practice the presence of the Lord in your word, in worship. You know, those two things are actually really, really valuable. What we found is a lot of students would come to school and they would get their word every day and they would get their worship every day. And then for whatever reason, when school was out, they just lived on whatever they had in school. And, you know, that just wasn't really sustainable. So if you can do those few things, we found that was the deciding factor in really making a great transition personally from BSSM into your communities, back into your local church. But that transition was really hard for a lot of people. It was uniquely challenging for me. Probably one of the hardest things for me. Again, when I left school, I stayed here, so I still had Bethel. So the one thing I can liken it to is I had a bit of a hiatus when I was on staff. I went from here as a youth pastor. They sent me to Weaverville to be a youth pastor. Now I don't. Weaverville is just like it sounds. Some of you are probably in Canada in places like Weaverville. And let's be really clear. Like there's, I say this with utmost respect. He is my father-in-law, and it really is how I keep my job here, probably. But practically, there's only one Bill Johnson, right? Like that's just the reality of it. I don't care. I love that guy. There's only one of him, and he comes in and teach. You're never going to find another one of him. And one of the harder things for me was to go from a Bethel church because of a bill and go to a different church and try to serve a different leader, a different pastor, a different organizational structure. That for me was super, super challenging. And I wish I had great ways to tell you how to make that transition. I really don't. Me and the Lord had to have it out a few times. And I really had to sit with the Lord and go, okay. And I went to serve Steve Backlund. You guys remember Steve? Was Steve around when you guys were here? No. So Steve and Bill couldn't be further from anybody. You know what I mean? Like they both love Jesus, but Steve was like, let's just laugh at that. And I would ask, why are we laughing at that? There's nothing to laugh at. You know what I mean? He would talk about like the Tigger anointing, and I'd be like, "Are you serious? That's Winnie the Pooh. That's not anointed. That's a stuffed animal. That's fake." And I was super challenged. And then I went to work for that guy, and he would roll in the office like probably twice a week, and he would bust in my office and go, "Gabe, what Goliath are you running after right now?" And I'm like, I don't know, Steve. I'm just trying to get work done. I'm trying to have a youth group. I'm trying to make sure kids don't stab each other. These are crazy kids. I don't know what Goliath right now. He'd be like, "Okay, Gabe, I'll see you a couple days." And he would bust in 3 times a week and say that. And I'm like, oh Lord, I feel super called. Like I'm supposed to be here. I do feel that I'm supposed to be here, but Lord, you got to help me because my heart is somehow tied to Bill. And yet I'm supposed to serve as Steve. And I really had to adjust my heart. Here's what's crazy. Steve is brilliant and wonderful and amazing. And I grew probably the most I've ever grown in my life in Weaverville. But I didn't actually start the process of growth until I adjusted my heart to serve a different leader. To go, okay, Lord, how do I listen? I don't want to lose a bill, but how do I turn so that Steve can actually be a father in my life? And that was super challenging for me to really figure out how to do that. And probably many of you were in that spot a little bit, which is like, okay, I've come from Bethel. It was amazing. There's great teachers. There's Bill, there's Chris, there's all these people. And now I'm in Canada. And maybe your pastor is amazing. Maybe he's not. But I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to figure out how amazing they are until you can really shift your heart and go, okay, Lord, what are you going to do in me so I can actually serve this leader that you put in my life? If you're where you're at, I believe with my whole heart, you're not there by accident. You know what I mean? Like, listen, this is purposeful. God has you where you're at for a reason. You got to figure out what the purpose is. And if you haven't found it yet, I would just encourage you to go before the Lord and figure out what is that purpose that you have me in this spot for. There has to be a reason. Listen, we talk in second year about the family you're in is on purpose. I know some of you might not like your family, but it's on purpose. You got to figure out why you're there. The church you're in is on purpose. The community you're in is on purpose. And if you can figure out why God put you there, that's when you actually start to grow and develop and actually serve the purposes of the Lord. I think for me, that's really important. And then you can actually work on creating revival and creating culture in your life, in your family, personally. It all kind of works out after that. And I'm really a believer, for most people, this isn't always true, but I think for most people, if you can really establish your relationship with the Lord, you can thrive just about anywhere. You really can. If you're in a place and you're not thriving, I think it really is important to go back to the Lord and find the reason why you're supposed to be there and go, Lord, why am I here? And find that, because I just know that we have even students that run through first year, run through second year. Some of you were in that spot when you were in school. You weren't thriving. You had to go back and find your purpose. You know what I mean? We have that happen all the time. So it really is less about your location and more about your relationship with the Lord and who he's put around you that keeps that revival, that fire in you sustainable. And so that for me have been probably the keys, really, really big deals for me. you know, and now that the challenge, and maybe some of you are here, it's how do you stay hungry to full table? You know, how do you keep your individual fire burning when there's fires burning all around you? You know, how do you not let someone else burn for you? And that for us is probably the thing that we most work on, because it really is easy to feel like you're burning, you know, you're really going after it. In this culture, when you're not, you could be pretty coasty in this culture. So that's where I surround myself with great leaders, great community, lots of accountability, people that will actually cause me to want to do better, want to do more. You know, that's where like my for me, my personal family comes into play, and my purpose really is outside of me at the moment. You know, my kids are a bit older, so now it's like, how do I get them, you know, fully pursuing the Lord as best I can? How do I create that pathway for them to walk into the presence? You know, so that's kind of where we're at. That's kind of what we do, and um, it's 6:18. I don't know if you guys had any questions. I can ramble for a long time, so I don't know how much you want me to talk or ramble or any of that stuff. Chris, you got to help me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's awesome, Gabe. That's great. Yeah, we'll leave some space for questions. Go ahead, guys. If you have a question for Gabe, feel free to unmute yourself and ask away.
I had a question. I don't know if anyone, yeah. Yeah, I did second year 2 years ago, Gabe. So good to see you again.
Nice to see you.
My question is, what do you do? What do you do if you've got conflict with extended family, or I guess with your in-laws or whatever? How do you deal with conflict with
Oh
family?
yeah, let me tell you about conflict with my in-laws right now. Listen, I'll tell you right now. I mean, what's is the conflict? Let me just ask: is the conflict like theological conflict, church conflict, or is it like personal, family stuff?
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, theological stuff would be. Yeah, we can go with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you might not like my answer, but here's what I do. So again, I'm not going to have probably any conflict with Bill's theology. Let's be clear about that. I ask lots of questions and do lots of listening. I will say that my parents, while they love Jesus, they're definitely in a different spot than I am in their theology and how they view the world, and lots of different stuff. And I used to roll into my parents' house, and you know, me and my mom would have what's the polite way? Discussion would be the polite way to put it. But if you're Mexican, discussions are just very loud, right? And so I remember rolling into my house like after school, after being in school, and first getting married, you know, and I took Leah there, and Leah ended up in the room we were staying in at my parents' house. She ended up in the room crying, 100%. And I was like, "What's the matter?" I rolled in. I'm like, "What's the problem?" And she's like, "I can't believe you talk to your mom that way." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? You see how she's talking to me? I'm not talking, you know." And I thought it was normal to communicate that way because that's how I grew up. So I realized pretty quickly that, oh, you know what? Here's what I got to be careful of. I got to be careful that I stay true to who I was becoming, if that makes sense. So I'm not going back to old ways of thinking, old ways of communicating, old ways of doing stuff. That I'm actually a new creation, and so being a new creation, I should act different. And the theology piece that we would always talk about. For me, I had to get to a spot where I was like, "Hey, listen, do you love the Lord? You really do." So we're going to end probably right there. And there's certain things theologically we can talk about. There's certain things we can't talk about. And I just erred on the side for me is like, hey, I'm going to go with what we can talk about. I'm not going to bring up the things we can't talk about. If you bring them up, I'm going to be extra kind in how I back away from those things. And I'm going to trust that you really love Jesus. And if that's true, we can kind of camp around the big mountain there. But, you know, there's certain things we can't camp around because we're going to just disagree. And we don't disagree well. Like, we haven't learned to disagree. And now I'm probably better, but I'm better now. But in the early days, like, oh, we haven't learned to be grown enough to have a conversation that's kind. And I can't have a conversation that's unkind. It doesn't represent who Jesus is very well. So we're just not going to do that. That's kind of what I did, to be honest. And so there's probably 5-6 years. I'm like, oh no, we just don't talk theology. It don't work. So you love Jesus. I love Jesus. Let's do that. That's what I did.
That's awesome. That's good. Thanks, Gabe. Does that help answer your question, Charles?
Yeah, that's good. Thanks, Gabe. That was good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
awesome. Anyone else? Another question? Yeah, John, go for it.
So,
John Lenton, then Jon Fischer.
Okay.
Two Johns.
Hey, I love Steve Bachman too, and I felt a good challenge from him. But it's interesting. Years later, I still think of the words he used. So my question to you is: do you find yourself asking someone, "What's your Goliath?"
I don't do it in that way. Honestly, here's what I do. The stuff I took from Steve the most is when Steve talks about like opportunity, like I would be like, I have a problem. And he said, no, you have an opportunity. And I'm like, no, I think it's a problem. I don't actually think it's an opportunity. I think I have a major problem. And, he taught me how to see the world the way the Lord sees the world, really, which is like, there's always an opportunity for stuff to happen. So I do use that language a bit. I would say that I probably grew under him more than anybody else. Our connection was really great, and he took a risk on me, to be a youth pastor when no one else really would. And I watched what he's done over the years, and I think Steve is brilliant. So I don't know that I would be the leader I am without a Steve, 100%. And I think that was the Lord. Like, I think the Lord has to sometimes, and I believe from my heart, sometimes he has to take you out of where you're at, put you someplace different to get you to grow. Like, I think if I stayed at Bethel, and I had an opportunity to stay at Bethel when they sent me to Weaverville, Chris said, you can stay here and do this job, or you can go there and do that job. If I were you, I would go because you're going to grow. So that's why I went. I didn't went because I had a passion for youth ministry or because I love Steve. I went because of Chris Valenzuela told me, you can grow more leaving. And so I remembered what Chris said to me, not Chris, Bill said years and years before we were talking about whatever we were talking about. And he said, I had to give Eric to Chris. And I asked him, what do you mean? This was years ago. And he's like, well, there was a season in Eric's life that I had to give him away because he needed what Chris had. He got everything that I had. He needed what a different leader had. And so I think there's seasons where you need what a different leader has. And Bill's amazing and valuable, but Bill's not the totality of leadership, right? And so you need what everybody else brings to the table to be fully, developed in what God's got for you. So Steve was a challenge for me, for sure, but he grew me more than almost anybody, and it was a great season of my life. Oddly enough, I went through a time where I hated Weaverville, didn't want to be there. It was a 3-year period. Probably 2 of those years, I was like, Lord, get me out of here. I would sit in my office and cry, legit, like with the lights off, to tell the Lord, like, I can't do Weaverville. I'm going to die in this little town, and it's not good. And it wasn't until my heart got shifted and I spent a year actually feeling successful. And the Lord was like, all right, you're done. You learned what you need to learn. It took you 3 years. You figured it out. You can go home now. And, I probably, if my heart didn't shift, I'd have probably been in Weaverville today. Like, the Lord would have just kept me there. And that's not bad. That's just what it was. So thanks, John.
Awesome. Thank you. Good.
Yeah, that's really good. Jon Fischer, we'll take yours as the last one.
Yeah, Gabe, I just was kind of thinking about like this past year has been, really tough on churches and lots of pressures. Like culturally, there's just so much going on and so much division. And I'm just wondering about for like Bethel, like in this past year. So like, what have you noticed that you've seen has been so helpful to keep, the leadership team unified in the midst of, everything going on in the world and maybe lots of diverse thoughts and opinions about things even amongst the team? How do you guys stay unified?
Oh yeah. We don't have a problem with lots of different thoughts and opinions here. Can I just be honest with you? I mean, Lord, it is, it's something. I think that's what I love about this place really is, when we talk about like, you don't have to think the same to run together. Like that is true. There couldn't be 2 different people besides Bill and Chris. You know what I mean? So it's unique. This was a challenging spot for us. I would say, with COVID in particular, there was lots of different thoughts and opinions about how do we move forward? What do we do? Do we close church? Do we open church? Do we do what the city's asking us to do? Do we do what we want to do? Oh yeah. And there was so many opinions about, not just thoughts. There was so many vocal opinions in meetings about that. And I think it was really good for us. You know, oddly enough, no one wants COVID. Like, that's not the thing anybody wants, you know what I mean? But it was really good for us as a culture to actually solidify connection, and to kind of reiterate, hey, we don't gather around agreement, we gather around fathers, you know? And so that was helpful for us. I think having to shut down while we didn't love it, for us, like for school, it really restructured a lot of what we do in a really good way. It still is a challenge for us, you know, here. Like, I think Reading is uniquely different. Like, you know, it's not Canada. So Canada is, all I know about Canada is what I see on the news, and I'm praying for everybody in Canada. So there's that. California is not the funnest place to be at the moment. I don't think it's Canada, but it's not the funnest place to be. Reading is this little pocket of grace in the middle of California. And it I don't know why, but it is, you know, drive 30 minutes either direction and it's uniquely different. You know, and it was tough when I had friends in Florida doing whatever they wanted. You know, I got freaking Michael Koulianos just having church wherever he wants to have church. You know what I mean? And he would call me and be like, bro, I had the best service tonight. And I'm like, shut up. No one wants to hear about your great service. I'm dying in a tent outside, freezing, you know, or hot, or it's rainy and I'm in this tent. And, you know, and Michael's like, bro, we had the best service. I don't want to talk to you, Michael. You know what I mean? So all of that said, man, it was a solidifier for us in, I would say, that little tent that we had to do school in for the whole year was the most presence we felt in years. It put everybody kind of on a place of, hey, we're going to go after one thing. We're going to go after him no matter what. And in that context, it was great for us. The disagreements, listen, we have lots of those. We get through those. The doors are closed. We kind of, you know, we do a lot of this when the doors are closed, and when the doors open, we love each other. And that's kind of how family works. And so, yeah, that part probably wasn't as bad as just the challenge of, you know, the whiplash you feel between, are we open? Are we closed? Are we online? Are we in a tent? The town shut us down. The town let us do it. Does the town have the right to let us do anything? You know, it's all of those things. But overall, man, it strengthened our hearts together. Like, our hearts, when you go through adversity, even if it's little, and let's be clear, like, COVID was a pain, but it wasn't like the most adversity we could have gone through, right? The persecuted church, they're doing a lot worse than us, if you want to put it in those terms. But any bit of adversity, we've learned to really value that, because I think that's where relationships are built often, is in difficulty and adversity. So, you know, I would just tell you here at Bethel, I don't know if it translates well because we, you know, over social media or whatever else. I know that, you know, Eric's going to plant a church and people are asking like, oh my gosh, what's going on? What's happening? All that stuff. I don't think we've ever been as connected. We've never been, you know, as hopeful. We've never had as much vision in a house as we do right now. So it feels amazing here, to be honest. There's no other place we'd rather be. It feels great. So I wish I could tell you, oh, we're just surviving. No, we're actually thriving right now. And it feels amazing to be here. It hasn't felt this good here in years, to be honest. So I'm praying for Canada. Yeah.
Thank you. We need it. Jocelyn, did you have one last quick question? I know we're almost at our time here with you, Gabe. If you got
no,
a couple
great.
more minutes. Okay.
You got time, Gabe. Listen, it's not so much. What is that? Someone's music? Is that my phone? It's me. Is it really?
I don't hear it. Oh.
Yeah, I think it was you, Jocelyn, but now you're gone.
Hello? Oh my gosh.
You're back.
Yeah.
I don't even know where this music's coming from.
I can't hear it, so you're great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just go for it.
Okay, so this is not a question, Gabe, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for just who you were in second year. I share my testimony all the time of just transitioning from first year to second year and just breaking cycles and stepping into has allowed me to be like who. And so I just wanted to say thank you. And I'm so glad that you're still over second year and you're helping other people. Just, first year kind of stirs people up and kind of like introduces people to God. Gosh, now I got to get my life right. And then you were able to just straight talk with me and break off so much shame. And I think I just wanted to say this to just encourage you, that, you brought me to a place where I knew the difference between when I could admit, repent and share a full truth than just share a partial truth. You brought me into like freedom. And so I just say this because I know that there's so many other people that are going to come into second year and God's like stirred a bunch up and they just need that next step of truth talkers that are going to get them out of their cycles and just into their calling. And so I just appreciate your boldness and just always speaking truth to me and just, calling it like it is. Jocelyn, you talk too much, or Jocelyn, and it's just like those are the things that have helped me grow and become who I am today. And I'm always so grateful when I share about being in second year under you and so much part of my story. So thanks.
You're not supposed to tell people I told you talk too much. That was rough. We had a good relationship. So Jocelyn Parker with Jocelyn Bell back in the day.
Yes.
So Jocelyn helped to name my little boy. We were sitting outside having a
Fat Boys? No, what was that place called?
Yeah, the place across from Twin View.
Yeah.
We're having barbecue something or other, and I was trying to figure out how I'm going to name my son because my wife has basically ate all the good names of the first three. Cruz was a wonderful oops. So by then you're just like, okay, not planned. So I'm kind of out of names. And Jocelyn had a word from the Lord. So that's how we got Cruz. So that was it.
It was my honor. Me saying thank you.
So there you go. Anyway, it was nice to see everybody. I really do enjoy it. So cool. And we'll be praying for you guys. So Canada's going to open up here pretty quick. It can't stay there forever. And it's going to be amazing. And it's going to be so good. So when it opens up and we can actually cross the border again, hope to see everybody and come by. Yeah. If you haven't been to second year, there's still a chance you can come back. So, and second year.
Real quick, just one or two people for like 10 seconds or less. What are you taking away from what Gabe had to say? Share tonight. What's your big takeaway from what he had to share?
That's a lot of pressure for them. They got to figure out what I said that was good. That's tough.
It is. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the pressure.
Where you are, like that's a good one. To not jump ship when why God has put you in the place you are. Like, yeah, that's a big deal, and I've seen that in my life. So thanks, Gabe.
Yeah, I agree. Figuring out what's the purpose in the leader I'm serving, and like engage God in that process and that purpose. That's really good. One other person, what are you taking away from tonight?
Get connected.
Go for it.
Ask the why, serve the why.
Good. Awesome. Well, thank you, Gabe. Thanks for taking time to be with us tonight. We appreciate it. And thank you so much. And this recording will be available. So I don't know, you said I could share it if it was good. Do you feel like you can improve?
Only if it's good. So if it worked out for you, you can share it. If it's bad, throw it away.
Yeah. Right on.
All right.
Cool.
Thanks so much. Love everybody.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye. Thanks.